the moderator for today. He'll quickly introduce the panelists, invite them, and it will be a 30 to 40 minute session with 15 to 20 minute Q&A at the end. Right, so over to you, Aatish.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. Guys, some energy. Hey everyone. You're waving, dude, seriously. Okay, how's it been going so far? You guys got some valuable information? Yeah? Okay, so how many of you know who our panelists are today? No one? One? One person? Two? Okay. So, here's one rule for you guys, okay? I'm sure all of you have mobile phones. Most of you should be on Twitter, okay? We want to make this a lot more engaging for you guys today, okay? So if you guys, during the discussion, if you can send in your questions that you feel are pertinent at that point of time, please do send it. Put it at the rate Head Start Bangalore, and we'll answer your questions right there, okay? And at the end of it, we'll also do a 20-minute Q&A with the audience, okay? All right, so first introducing Arpita, who is the founder of Buttercups. So Arpita was on a holiday in New York, okay? And she had a brafting session which she found fabulous. So she came to India and she wanted to help other women with the same thing, giving them the confidence of a perfect fit. An interesting thing about Arpita is she went to Belgium and she drove 900 kilometers for one thing. Can anyone guess what that was? Chocolates? No? No? Anyone else? Beer, yes. She drove 900 kilometers to get a beer. She's a beer connoisseur. Please give her a big round of applause. So next we have Harsha Kumar, who's a part of Lightspeed India. So some of you would have used this app called Ola. How many of you have used Ola here? How many of you use Ola here? Okay, so. Yeah, how many of you have not used Ola here? One person, dude, seriously, she's going to come after you now. Anyway, so she was one of the earliest product people at Ola. She ended up growing the team, a product team of 40 people. Before that, she was at Zynga, okay? And currently, she's an investor with Lightspeed India. So this one interesting thing about Harsha is she's a fitness freak, and she's also a hip-hop dancer. Can we please have a big round of applause for her? Finally, we have.
But, I thought you were going to say, please play the music.
We can play music. Okay. Finally, we have Rakshit of Drop Cafe. So Rakshit, to put it briefly, Rakshit has more than 15 years of experience in M&A and investment banking. He had a previous startup which went through an accelerator called Techstars in New York. Okay, and then he came to India and he started Drop Cafe. Okay. An interesting thing about Rakshit, how many of you have read this article called Funding is, I'm sorry, what's the name? How do you use funding in the Tinder style? Has anyone here read that article? You've read that article? So he read this article and guess what? He's got offers to write a book and to write a web series, which he's actually doing right now. He's doing the web series. Can we have a huge round of applause for Rakshit? Cool. So, Arpita, can we begin with you?
Yes.
So, you started Buttercups, right? And so everyone here is looking for funding, and everyone's looking at funding in the traditional way. Everyone's here to meet a VC, everyone's here to meet an angel investor. But you started with the crowdfunding route,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why did you go there? And what were your other options at that point of time?
So I started Buttercups in 2014. In 2013, when I started looking to raise funds, and I went to the typical VCs, I'm fairly well connected. Everyone turned me down saying that no, there's no brand story. There's a marketplace story, which is what everyone was running after. The other thing that they would tell me is that I just had a business plan and I had a lot of experience in the lingerie space. The only thing they would say is that you have no proof of concept, you don't have a product, and you don't have a website. So on what basis will we fund you? Get us proof of concept that what you're saying works and there is a need for a better product in the lingerie space, and then let's talk. how it worked out was that I sat around thinking about it, and then I was like, okay, who's going to give me proof of concept? Customers. Who are going to be my customers? Friends, women who are, uncomfortable with what they're wearing. So I said, okay, fine, let's start doing a crowdfunding. I had already funded a couple of projects on Kickstarter. So I've been funding projects on Kickstarter for about 8-9 years by then. So I was like, when I can fund projects there, why can't someone fund me? And that's how the crowdfunding thing started. I was already retailing my products online, so I had a payment gateway. We just integrated the payment gateway. We didn't even, at that point of time, there was no Wishberry, there was nobody. So we said, okay, what do? We looked up themes, and we found a web theme for a crowdfunding platform. Friends of mine helped me put it together in 24 hours. Site was up in 24 hours. In 2 months, we raised about 4.5 lakhs from about 100 women. And that actually led to friends of mine who were following this very, very closely to actually come forward and fund me for about 1 crore. And that's how I got funded, right? So key takeaways from that is that going to a VC, going to an angel is not the only option you have. If there is a story that you want to tell and you genuinely believe that people will need or want what you're building or what your product or service is, get proof of concept by doing a small crowdfunding thing. There is absolute value in that. That's also validation whether people will buy at a certain price or they won't buy, right? So that's one. Second is that crowdfunding, the entire crowdfunding project gives people who are going to come and invest in you. For me, I didn't even know these friends were going to invest in me, right? Till they came forward and said, you know what, we've been watching you closely and let us fund you. So the second lesson to be learned is that don't forget to ask friends and family for money if you're starting out, because sometimes your friends and family, if they don't believe in what you're doing, how do you expect somebody else to believe in that, right? So the key takeaways from crowdfunding.
Right. Harsha, so most people here want to know how can they raise funding? How can they raise funds, and from whom can they raise funds, right? But I don't think a lot of people have actually answered the question as to why do they need to raise funds, and when is the ideal time for them to actually look at funding as an option?
I think that the answer to when is in the why. And this is across the life cycle of a product, right? So, or of a startup. I think step one is to, sometimes I dislike the word startup because I feel that it is automatically associated to raising VC money, right? And I feel that the right way to think about starting up is to go back to first principles, right? Go back like 20 years ago and say, अगर मुझे धंधा चालू करना है, मुझे क्या चाहिए? खत्म, right? Everything else comes later. So now, if you just have an idea and you don't know if that idea works, what is the first thing that you would have done if this was a traditional business? If this was a dhanda, what would you have done? You would have gone to friends and family and said, give me some money, I want to try something out. You would have found a partner and you said, let's try. This is, today we use the term angel for this, right? Because now we're startups. So you have angel money. Ideally, the way I would look at it is you start raising more money as the needs of your company start to grow, or as the potential for your company starts to grow. And if you, as a founder, you believe that the potential for my company is higher, it means, and you want to grow it, then you need two things, right? You need people that can help you build your company. So if it's a traditional service, or earlier days it was an IT company, you need developers in house. Today, if you're building products, you need product managers, or again developers in house. If you are in R&D, you need scientists in house. You need people to help you build your solution. Or you need money because you need customers and you need to get your word out there. You need to reach out to these customers. I think if I had a startup, the way I would be thinking about this, and the way I like to see startups thinking about this, is you raise angel money when you have an initial idea. You raise seed money when you've validated that idea, in the sense that you put an MVP out there, you saw some traction, and you realize that people want what you're building. So you raise seed money. The objective of seed money is to get to product market fit. In order to get to product market fit, you need more people to develop a better product, and you need to spend a little money to get some more customers to see if there's a product market fit. And that's when you raise a seed round. Once you have a product market fit and you feel that the market is big and you want to scale further, it means you need to market more, you need money to grow. That's when you go to, a Series A VC. And I think that all rounds after that are just in that cycle. You need money to hire more people, you need money to market more or sell more. And you hit your Series B. Then you need more money to hire more people and to market more and to sell more. You need more money, so until you get cash flow positive, where your cash flow can take care of your business, can take off your growth needs itself without having to raise external money, you keep raising, essentially.
Got it.
But I guess it's also important to know when to stop and when to important to know when it's not working.
Right,
That's more important.
Can we have a raise of hands? How many people in the crowd are entrepreneurs here? Can you raise them high, please? Awesome. Okay, that's a lot. So based on what Harsha just said, how many of you feel that you are, let's say, at the Series A stage? How many of you? One person there? Okay. How many of you feel that you've crossed? You're at the angel stage? And I'm assuming the rest of you feel that you're at the seed stage? Okay, interesting. Okay, so Rakshit, you've raised 2 rounds of funding already, right? So what made you decide to raise those funds? Why did you raise funding at that point of time?
Yeah, I think what Harsha just said, you have to think of it as a dhanda or a business first. So when we started with our own funds, and sometimes you may not have it, right? A lot of people come to me and say that I don't have my own funding in sense of savings or whatever. If you don't have your own savings, you have to have access to some debt, something that you have to jugadify that first 10, 15, 20 lakh rupees. If you can't do that, don't really get into this game, because if you can't do that much, there's a lot more coming that you have to constantly hustle out. So that is the money that angels also want you to raise for yourself, because they want to see that hustle in you. It's not about they can't give you that 20, 25 lakhs. It's peanuts for them, right? But if you don't have that hustle, you have to have that. So we had that. We had access to that money somehow. We basically kind of started off. And when we reached a place wherein we were profitable at a unit level. So people understand unit level profitability, right? So basically when we were profitable at a unit level, at an area level, we started off with Kormangla, where we were doing some deliveries and stuff. We said now is the time to invest in marketing just beyond the word of mouth. So, there's a word of mouth marketing, but there's a finite reach to that. You have to now start doing some paid marketing. So paid marketing is where we started, we had to kind of invest. We had to hire real people in the sense, initially you get some startup enthusiasts in your team, but then you have to start hiring the real people. Real people are people with some experience, people with some sector knowledge. So those kind of people we had to hire. We had to invest in slight bit of technology and our food science part. So these are areas which any startup will have based on the sector they are in, either technology, food science, branding, marketing. But those expenses is what we wanted to fund. And while your vision is while your execution is at a smaller geography level, in your mind as an entrepreneur or as a businessman, you're thinking of a larger play. A larger play could be a citywide play, could be a statewide, could be a national, could be an international. That is for you to define what large means to you. Once you define that large, it's meant to you, now you have to start building a brand for that national level, not after 3 years, after 4 years, but the packaging, the customer service, everything has to already align to that national play or the international play that you're thinking. That's where the money goes. And for that, you have to start raising, because that will not be covered from your sales and your profit and all that. That will take forever. So that's when we decided now is a good time. And we thankfully didn't have to approach people. The buzz was sufficient that people were approaching us, and then we had to kind of just see whether it is good enough for us.
Interesting. How many of you guys had their coffee over there, the bottled coffee? One person? Seriously?
Everyone.
Yeah. Guys, hands, please. How many of you guys love their coffee? That's brilliant. Okay. Arpita, coming.
Sadly, can't say that about my bras, no? Can we? How many of you tried it? Damn. Sorry. Go on.
Next time, maybe.
With the men to women ratio here, I don't think it's worth the effort.
So that's actually a good segue into our next question, right? You're not in a pure play technology business, right? You're completely off that. So when you, and this applies to you as well. So when you actually,
This panel actually, none of us are tech people except, I mean, you were a product person at one time, but now she's not either. So that's a very interesting thing.
so when you were raising funds, because you eventually did raise some money, how difficult was it? How challenging was it for you to raise those funds? And what were were there any specific challenges that you faced while trying to explain it to these investors that you are not in a tech space?
So challenges are plenty. I am in a retail brand space. It takes a long while, like Rakshit said, we're both in the same kind of similar space of building brands. Brands take a long while to make. Typical VCs in India especially do not believe in the brand story. Now they've started to, but it's more the PEs that believe in brands. And PE money doesn't come at such a young stage, right? So chicken and egg, what do? I was very lucky that I was constantly mentored by Kanwaljit from, he used to be the MD at Helion Ventures. And he genuinely believed that there was a space for brands in India to build, and he's now started his own retail fund. So when we had a backing of that, so that's why I still haven't raised money from any VC, or I only raised money from angels, and I've raised about $1 million, but I've raised it only from angels. So there's still a problem to try and raise money for something that I'm doing, because the brand story is not an easy exit for a VC. They would need exponential growth, whereas we focus more on, like Rakshit said, unit economics, are we profitable? And when you're focusing on that, you really can't do exponential growth. So it's, again, you're stuck in that space for a long while. So it's still difficult to raise money from VCs. So we look at, so what do? You don't stop looking for money, right? So you look at, so people like us look at strategics. We look at bigger brands that might want to enter into the space. We look at people like the Aditya Birla Group that's already in retail, because they already have, say, a Mom and Me or First Cry, which caters to the same kind of audience. We look at fashion labels that might want to come into the play. So then you start looking at other means of trying to get to raise money. And I guess even my channel today will be that. It's very difficult to raise VC even today for me in the business that I am in. Yeah.
Rakshit, what about you?
So I agree to what Arpita just said, but our experience was that there are certain investors or investor classes who are excited about this space because they are seeing successes in brands abroad at least, and some have shown in India like Paperboat and ID Foods. So these guys have created a brands out of nothing, and they are in a good space within a defined period of timeline which investors like to see. So there are different kinds of venture funds who would be open to your idea, like say a DSG or a Mayfield or those kind of people who are open to consumer and brand space. But they are definitely lesser, but the good news is that at least there are people who are dedicated to that. Then comes the family offices. So family office, don't undermine the importance of family offices who can write you a check of 5 to 10 crores because what they are looking for is stability of business. They're not looking for high-tech products, because sometimes high-tech products, while they can become very big, but their outcome sometimes can be zero. It's a 0 or 1 binary kind of a situation which they don't like. So what they are trying to diversify is from stock markets. So stock markets give them 5x in 5 years. Can my startup investing or business dhanda investing give me 10x or 15x in 5 years or 10 years? That's what they're looking for. So family offices become that bridge that you may look at if you're trying to do something out of the ordinary. So if you're not building a marketplace, you're not building a kick-ass product company or whatever, then you can probably look at this thing. Angels are angels. They just go with the flow. So basically, if you're doing something fun, if you're doing something nice, if they see passion in you, they see some traction, they'll put money irrespective of the sector. So angels are very different breed. They go more by the person that they see across the table. If there is some amount of hustle, some amount of real passion, persistence, besharmi, sab kuch mila ke, if they see all of that, they'll put money. So angels are a different class, but once you cross that hump over, then you have a challenge, which one to go for. Typical funds, you have to do their research, what kind of portfolios they have, and based on that, you'll get a clear trend, what they are looking for. If they're not, they will not say with their own faces, oh, we don't like this. They'll always say it's a good thing, come after 3 months, come after 6 months. They'll do all that. But if you look at the portfolios, you'll exactly know what they are looking for.
Okay, that's interesting.
I'll add just a little more to that, right? No, so family offices is something everyone should start tapping into now. There are a whole bunch of them. That aside, I think, like he mentioned, that there are a lot of funds that look at consumer, goods now. There's often a mismatch that I have seen where it's the size of money you want to raise and who you approach. I think that is the other key research you need to do. If you're raising, say, 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs, angels don't have to be, listed angels. Angels can be, like for me, they were my friends. I didn't even know they had this kind of money and they would invest, right? So I think you form angels. In my case, I have 10 investors, of which 9 have invested for the first time in me. So now they've become angels, right? And these were people I didn't even know would do that. So exploring what is happening next to you, especially when you're raising the first round of basic money, I think that very, very important to be shameless and ask. I think that is the one thing we both agree on. If you don't ask shamelessly, no one's going to give you. So that's the one lesson I've learned, that now I ask shamelessly. Paisa hai, you're badi gaadi chala rahe ho, paisa dalo business mein, right? But some people do say yes to that and they sit down and give you the money. So that is an exploration you must do.
How many people in this audience have actually tried this? How many of you have actually gone out and asked each and every friend and each and every family member? Just a few people, okay. Did you guys get that money? Yes. Awesome, okay. You asked it from your client, that's perfect.
That is even better, right? That is validation of business. Fabulous.
There's no right or wrong source of money, right? I mean, they're all people who will believe in you. So they all have to see that madness in you almost. It's the madness quotient which is important for angels, not for VCs. VCs will look at metrics and all of that, and the products and the metric. Unko madness nahi chahiye. Madness is for angels. So you have to be sober when you go to the VC.
Well, now that you do bring up the metrics, right, Harsha, from a VC's perspective, right, so we've heard it from 2 entrepreneurs here, right, but from a VC's perspective, what do you look at before investing in a startup? What excites you as a VC?
I think first and foremost is the team. No matter what, I think everybody wants that crazy entrepreneur who will go to the length, right? Everybody wants to see whether you're willing to do what it takes. I mean, starting a company and taking it to scale is not an easy feat, and everybody wants to see whether you have the gumption to do it. I think that so team matters a lot. Team composition, in fact, is very critical. Have you thought deep about the space that you're in and what kind of hire is critical for you, right? I think it's very sad if you come across someone who's building a brand but has not hired a kick-ass marketing person, right? You're building a brand, hire a great brand manager. You want to see that the founding team or the founder or the CEO is actually thinking that far as to say that this is the kind of product that I'm putting out there, and for this product, this is important, right? If you're building a B2B SaaS company, then your sales head needs to be a kick-ass person, and I want to see that you've thought about it, and that even though you have less money, you could convince someone to join you, right? So those are important things to see. Those are signals whether you hire the right people. This is interesting, you'll hear this a lot. Most VCs look for signals. This is what we look for. In terms of metrics, I think it differs based on the kind of company that you're building. So if it's a B2C product, so B2C bets are literally just that. They're bets, because you never know what works in B2C. B2B is predictable. There are numbers, there is revenue, there's customers, it's visible. So with B2C, it's all signals. And where are these signals? These signals are in some 2 or 3 key metrics. One is your customer acquisition cost. Is it low enough? A low enough or a dropping customer acquisition cost indicates that people are looking for something like this and they are coming to you through word of mouth, and hence your CAC just keeps dropping. Cohorts are important. I'm amazed at how many startups we meet that don't know what cohorts mean. That's not right, especially in this day and age. There is enough resources out there. There are enough entrepreneurs all around you. You should know what cohorts mean, and you should have them ready. And cohorts are just an indication of how well you're able to retain the people that you bring onto your platform, because it basically tells us when you're taking money from VC in B2C, in B2C segment, you're largely taking it for team and marketing. And so cohorts tell us whether that marketing is going in the right place. Do you know how to execute there? Or is it worthwhile marketing for this product? Are customers going to stick? Is the product good enough? And third is repeats, because higher repeat frequency gives you more opportunity to monetize at a later stage. Most B2C companies don't monetize early on. In fact, most VCs are aware of it. They're not looking for revenue from B2C companies. They're looking largely for these three things. A caveat might differ by the partner that you're talking to, might differ by the venture capital fund that you're talking to, but broadly, this will be the case. With B2B, it's very different, right? As I said, B2B is measurable. You can see what's going on. B2B valuations are also very measurable. They are very closely tied to the revenues you make. So with B2B companies, the kind of things that one would look for is how long is the sales cycle? Is it the kind of product that needs a lot of feet on street, or is it the kind of product that's easy enough to understand where you can sell on the phone? Because then your sales cycle will be faster or your acquisition cost will be lower, right? Second thing that you would look for is obviously customer churn or stickiness, right? Are customers sticking around, or are they trying it and then leaving? It just shows you the quality of the product. You would look for ARR, annual run rate, and you would look for the rate at which it's growing. Or if you're going for funding early on, it'll be MRR. So essentially, these are things that indicate how the health of the company is like. And again, these are all signals, because there's only so much that you can know about a company, so you turn to numbers to understand what's going on in the company. And then, you know, if you're in a company like Ola, right, for instance, like heavy OPEX, a lot of operational spend plus technology, that's a completely different game, because now an investor in a heavy OPEX company, an investor knows that this company will need a lot of funding, right? So you want to know what the efficiency of that capital is. So you want to know how much capital gets invested upfront for you to start generating revenue, at what point you break even. So having an understanding of your unit economics becomes very critical in a company that is OPEX heavy, and very critical to understand what your break even point is, right? So based on the type of business, it differs.
So we had a bunch of entrepreneurs raise their hands here. How many of you are B2C startups? How many of you are B2B companies? Interesting. On the B2B side, how many of you guys are actually measuring the things that she mentioned? Okay, so the others, you guys need to start soon, yes? Now, I guess. On the B2C side, how many of you guys are actually measuring? How many of you are making money on the B2C side? Let's say how much revenue? How much revenue are you getting?
How many of you have a revenue company?
Okay. No, on the B2C side, how many of you are getting revenue? Not a lot. Okay. So that's an interesting mix. You guys should probably think about that a little bit more deeper now. Let's do this, okay? We'll do one more round here, okay? And then let's go to you guys, because you guys seem like, guys, some energy, please, okay? We're going to get you to ask your questions. Volunteers, I request you to please, go with the mics. You guys are ready? Awesome. Arpita. So you've mentioned alternative routes of funding, right? Like crowdfunding. But you've also mentioned things like government loans, the Stand-Up India programs.
Yeah.
Can you please elaborate on that?
So, again, we meet enough and more entrepreneurs who say we want to raise money and VC is the only thing in their head. There are a lot of things that you can explore. There is with this Make in India thing. First, I think everyone should read up, especially if you're, it doesn't matter whether you're B2B, B2C, as long as you're an Indian company, please read up on the Startup India fund, right? There is a 10,000 crore fund that's lying there. It has various degrees. There is a fund of funds which got mentioned earlier in the session. There is a mandate called CGTMSE, right? Now this, 90% of us are eligible for this. But before you do that, please go and register yourself in that Startup India. It's very, very important. It's not a large, difficult process for a change. The government has made it so easy that it's a form you fill out online, and genuinely it works. It took me a month. I filled out the form. They told me it'll take a month. Exactly into the month, my certification came in, by SMS and by email. That has a lot of validation. When you go to a bank to raise money from the bank, there's a lot of debt you can raise from the Startup India or from the government fund that is there through banks. So CGT MSE is one. There's a Stand Up India. Again, Stand Up India, just Google it. There's a website. Eligibility is clearly written. Which banks will give it to you is clearly written. Again, online filling of forms. So there are so many things. So Stand Up India is, you can get close to about 2 crores of a loan at between 8 to 10% interest rate if you're valid, if you're eligible for it. There is SIDBI. SIDBI gives out multiple loans, especially for women entrepreneurs. There are a couple of loans there, up to about 1 crore. They also give out grants if you're in the social space. So there's a whole bunch of all this that is there that you can explore also. And for somebody like me, where I genuinely believe I'm not a typical VC fundable business, these are the things that I'm exploring, and I'm seeing this. I could have done this, I should have done this about a year ago. And which is why exploring all these options might be something that everyone wants to do. Yeah.
Awesome. Has anyone actually explored any of these options?
Yeah.
Getting a signature from a incubation, how did you
So
manage that?
91 Springboards, they will talk to you. I got mine from 91 Springboards. If you want to reach out to them, I'm happy to connect you. Reach out to them, tell them that you want to do this. They make you fill another form, which is about 10 times more difficult than the Startup India form. But if you can fill it right, they give you the certification immediately. Right? So they took about a week for me, and they charge you money because by the government, they are mandated to charge money. So they charge about 7,000 rupees for it. But it's absolutely fine. So they have, their questionnaire is much, much more intensive than, that the questionnaire that Startup India asks. So, yeah.
Key takeaway being fill the form correctly.
Yeah. Fill the form correctly, please. Have all your data in place before you, that form took 2 days to fill. So you'll need to have all of that.
Harsha, so when a VC invests in a startup, in a business, right? What can an entrepreneur expect from the VC after that is done, right? What can they look forward to after that?
So ideally, look, the entrepreneur is the hero of the company, right? Most investors understand that, and they're likely not going to get involved in your strategy unless you ask for it. If you ask for it, then there is a lot that you can get from a VC. There's a lot of wisdom. Most of these funds have been investing in India for years, 15 years in a few cases. Lightspeed has been around for 8 years now. And so we've seen different cycles that this economy has gone through. We come across a bunch of different kinds of businesses. And so there's a lot of wisdom that you can rely on. A lot of the VCs have been entrepreneurs before in the past or have had strong operational background. So again, I'm sorry, I'm not marketing here, but I'm just saying in Lightspeed, for instance, everyone on the team has operational experience at startups. And so again, that helps you, you're talking to people who've been through the same issues and can see them coming and hence can protect you or tell you in advance. I think that having an investor on board helps you bring in a lot of processes. Because I think when you're starting up on your own, especially if you have less experience, or I think the processes also that you follow when you're starting up are very different from the processes that you follow when you're part of a company. I think understanding what metrics are important, what numbers need to be tracked, who are the important people in the company that need to be on their toes to know what to focus on. I think this is where investors can help you a lot. I think investors can help a lot with hiring. This becomes very difficult for startups, especially when you have less money or you can't give huge salaries. How do you get smart people to join you? Investors help a lot there. I've seen cases where partners have actually gone and met a potential hire to convince them to join the company at a lower salary. It just brings in a lot of confidence in the startup if your investor can stand up for you. You can expect connections. I think that's critical. Again, for a B2B company, connections to potential customers. For a B2C company, connections to the right people who've been there, done that. For at later stages, connections with potential strategic acquirers or connections that will help you exit. I think all of that is where VCs would come in. I think another place where VCs end up helping a lot is when you're thinking of important pivots in your business. When you feel that something is not working, what do you do next? I think having an investor that has a lot of empathy, has seen such times before, and can support you through that. This is also where an investor gets critical.
Okay. Rakshit, so can you give us a brief idea as to what is the correlation between, let's say someone's raising money out there, they're speaking to an investor right now. What kind of valuation takes what kind of equity dilution? What are the the unsaid rules in the investing space? What's your take on that?
So this answer comes with a disclaimer that don't get lost in the valuation and dilution. This is a diplomatic answer which everyone will give you, including the investors, that build a big business, it doesn't matter. But that's a very right thing to think. But you have to also be aware of some numbers, which I will disclose based on what I've seen after talking to a lot of people and going through what I've gone through. By the time of an institutional round, which is a VC round, which is when, say, Harsha and the likes of Harsha's, when they start looking at your businesses, they need to see certain equity left with the management team. And if you've diluted too much by then, you become quote unquote unfundable because the management team does not have enough equity in the company. So keeping that and working backwards, the first round, which you will probably do an angel seed, call it whatever, after your initial MVP is done, traction is there, people like you, and they are giving you money to scale, probably would be in the range of say 2-3 crores. You basically put together a round with say 8-10 angels and stuff. Now, how much should you dilute? You cannot dilute more than, I think, a rough number I'll give you is 20%. Keep that in mind, and this is again working towards that 50% mark, because the second dilution will happen, which is called, for lack of a better word, pre-series A, which you would be reading right now. This happens because the VCs are now looking at more certain businesses to really, it's called growth capital, where they're giving money not for your idea validation, but for growth. And that's where the pre-series A bridge comes, which again will take care of your another 20-25% dilution at that point in time. So you've already diluted 40% roughly, and some ESOPs are already gone out, some advisors, this, that. So you're already in the 50% mark, which is fine. But before institutional round, you should not have diluted 70-80%. There are some angels who will come that, give me 50% of your company and I'll take you to moon and all that. Don't do that, because once the angel takes 50% to take you to moon, there's no one else who will touch you after that. So basically, don't rely and don't fall for that, because it becomes very unfundable capital table, as cap table as it's called. So just keep these broad numbers in mind, 20-20, and then the VC will come and take probably a 26 to 33%. Again, you can't quote and you can't go, the numbers change, but that's the number they are looking at. There's a typical VC math that they do in their own mind, and they're looking at that kind of a dilution. So just keep all these numbers at back of the mind. But having said all of that, try and build a company first, build value in the company first. These things will follow, and these things will be dictated by you if you build value. If you have not built value, then anyway you are not the toast of the town. And you can't dictate terms. In order to dictate terms as entrepreneurs, I can only talk from entrepreneur lens. In order to dictate terms, you have to build value. And when you build value, you dictate terms. So that's what it is. And then the numbers keep changing in your favor.